So it seems that Games Workshop is still going pedal to the metal for Space Marine reveals. Today they've showcased a combat patrol set for Ultramarines and a brand new Ultramarines upgrade sprue. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking Ultramarines reveals, taking a look over first their new discount box set and then their combat patrol. Given it's just over 48 hours until the October Battle Company giveaway comes to an end, I'll just give a shout out to this one as well at the end of the video. Basically for 3 channel viewers to get 100 Space Marines of their choosing within a given budget, winners chosen with a random number generator. I'll cycle back to that at the end of the video if you'd like to enter for that. Let's get into today's reveals though, and it seems that Ultramarines have both got a Combat Patrol box set and also a new upgrade sprue. Clearly both Space Marines and Ultramarines have been doing kind of weirdly well in terms of releases over the past few weeks. We've come to the end of the more normal Warhammer 40k Codex rollout, with the release for the Drukhari book, so we're kind of in uncharted territory, and Games Workshop often choosing to drop new models towards the end of an edition. So far for the Ultramarines, we've had the Victrix Honor Guard, Cato Sicarius in Primaris form, and kind of weirdly a new model for Marnius Calgar, updating his really quite recent Primaris era sculpt. The Ultramarines are getting their limited edition Ferran Araios, a Black Library release character, and then on top of that, regular Space Marines have had plenty more, new Assault Terminators, a Terminator Ancient, and a new Jump Captain. It does seem to be quite a lot all in all. Today though, to add to that pile, we've got 2 more releases for the Ultramarines, an Ultramarines Combat Patrol box set to mirror the other ones that the Space Marine chapters had, and this contains Chief Librarian Tigurius, and also the other new reveals of today. That second reveal is an Ultramarines upgrade sprue, this one feeling more in keeping with things like the Dark Angels and Blood Angels ones that they've had, quite a bit more generous in terms of the parts and shoulder pads that you get, at least compared with the perhaps slightly stingy feeling ones for the other first founding chapters from Core Codex Space Marines. I say the Combat Patrol box set isn't exactly a huge surprise. We had one for every other Core Codex chapter, and when it became clear that Games Workshop was not just allowing the other chapters to catch up on Ultramarines a bit, and they have releases coming for them, it did seem that one might turn up alongside a launch for their characters. I say the upgrade sprue is maybe a bit more of a surprise to me though. It almost seemed like Games Workshop had been going off upgrade sprues a little. They did one for the Cadian Guard but not for the Death Corps when they released, and they'd done one for Dark Angels and Blood Angels but not for Space Wolves. Having a look at the upgrade sprue parts and talking through the content of the Combat Patrol. Release wise, Games Workshop have just said that they'll be coming sometime soon, so we don't know exactly when. I'd guess they might well be with the rest of the big Space Marine release wave at least sometime within 2025. I'd be surprised if it's a 2026 release. They at least usually tend to communicate when you have to wait till the new year. One thing to bear in mind about the Combat Patrol release though is that it's probably not going to be a permanent range item, as there was a slightly disappointing reveal about the other Space Marine Combat Patrol box sets last week. It seemed that around about Thursday or Friday or thereabouts, Games Workshop changed the description for the sort of Salamanders and Imperial Fists and other ones to available while stocks last, which is the one that they usually do for things like limited run battle forces. That was a bit of a surprise, seeing as they hadn't done that for Combat Patrol box sets before. Prior to now, if it's a Combat Patrol, it's usually tended to be a normal range item, and they'll keep on making more of them to make demand until they decide to either replace it with another one or it gets phased out when a faction is reinterpreted or something. It does seem that that's not the case for these recent ones though, with the Imperial Fists and Salamanders Combat Patrols. It does look like by the numbers of people buying them, they have made really quite a lot of them, but it does seem that when they're gone, they're gone. I believe that all of them are still available in the USA, for example, though in the UK it seems that Combat Patrol Imperial Fists has actually sold out fully, and that's a bit of a shame as the most in-demand one. Overall, a bit disappointing to see the Combat Patrols going this way. I'd guess that'd probably mean that any of the ones that aren't associated with a full faction, such as the Krieg set, maybe the Harlequins and the Ultramarines, will probably just be ones that do get a big release and lots of box sets made for them, but if they do sell out, they won't come back. As ever, if you were looking to pick one of these up, check out the channel's affiliate discount retailers down in the video description, though I wouldn't rush out to pick up things that you weren't going to buy anyway. Tangents aside, let's get on to the new stuff though. First up, we've got the Ultramarines upgrade sprue, and as mentioned, it looks like it's one of the bigger, more extensive ones, similar to the Black Templars and Dark Angels and friends. That'll mean that at least pre-price rises, you could expect around about $35, £21 or €28 for this, and it seems that on the frame they have a pretty vast amount of shoulder pads, ones to fit all the different Primaris armor marks and fit in with the different kits that they produce. As usual, there's ones for Gravis and Terminator and Phobos and things, and it looks like for quite a lot of them you get enough to do a squad. It seems they give you a whole bunch of standard shoulder pads, and then often a sergeant specific one where you've got a little skull on the Ultramarines logo to denote the squad commander. Otherwise, beyond that, looks like there's a few fancier shoulder pads, maybe for some leaders or characters, a couple of little tilt plates, a whole bunch of bared heads, including some guy in a laurel wreath, and a couple of laurel wreathed helmets and fancy crest, giving a bit of the Ultramarine pseudo-Roman kind of vibe. Then there's a few bigger logos to stick on vehicles. They had an example of one on a sort of firstborn vehicle armor door, a couple of short gladius swords, one of them looking like it's for a Terminator Sergeant, and a few other small bits to put Ultramarines logos on specific parts within certain kits. Overall, I feel like these bigger ones are a bit more generous compared with the previous smaller Primaris upgrade sprues. They just felt like they were quite bad value in terms of the amount of parts that you got for your money. It's still certainly an extra expense compared with just buying the standard miniatures and putting transfers on or whatever, but at least the ratio is a little bit better with these ones. Here's a few pictures of how they've used the parts on different Space Marine models, a few of these from the upcoming Combat Patrol. I say it's maybe the sort of upgrade sprue that's going to be useful for chapter iconography, but maybe not one of the most exciting with a bunch of really different parts to add on. I did quite like the Black Templars one with the physical representations of their chapter relics. Then also packaged with the upgrade sprue is an Ultramarines transfer sheet. It seems that for this one they've deliberately focused on making more unusual icons, a whole bunch of bigger ones to go on vehicles and things, some slightly more unique squad markings that could be good for sergeants or commanders perhaps. It seems they've deliberately avoided a whole bunch of more standard chapter markings, which I guess you'd get on the vast majority of Space Marine transfer sheets in general. Between these ones and the upgrades, does feel like you'd have really quite a lot of material to add a bit more of the theme of the Sons of Macragge to a Space Marine army. As mentioned, they said there'd be a copy of this inside the Ultramarines Combat Patrol box set. I'd guess they'll have it both in here and also being able to buy it separately. I guess if this follows the same sort of pattern with being a limited item, it might be around for a bit, and then the main way to get your hands on the upgrade sprue is to buy it separately. In any case, as per Games Workshop's post-price rise Combat Patrols, this one should be $170, £105 or €135. And in the box set you get Chief Librarian Tigurius, 5 Reavers, 5 Intercessors, 3 Aggressors, 3 Blade Guard Veterans, and then the Ultramarines upgrades and transfers, so entirely infantry focused, but a fair mix of different sorts of ways of war, which I guess you'd expect for the tactically balanced Ultramarines. Going through the box, there's 5 Intercessors, standard issue Space Marines with bolt rifles. I certainly feel like one of the units I'd most associate with the Ultramarines. Maybe just having the 5 isn't necessarily the worst idea though, as lots of people tend to have plenty of these in their collections already. They're certainly very useful to have in game. Sticky objectives is a big advantage for just about any army out there, and they can put out some surprisingly brutal anti-horde firepower with target elimination doubling their bolt fire. It's pretty common to see a 5-man unit in the vast majority of Space Marine competitive lists right now. Then there's the Skull-Masked and Furboss Armoured Reavers. When they first came out, they certainly felt like the sort of kits that Games Workshop just wanted to put in every single discount box set as a sort of filler. At least for the average collector, they do seem to have been a unit that doesn't seem to inspire quite so much excitement as some of the others. A good chunk of the reason for that has been their rules. With their weapons that are generally good against lighter infantry and a focus on morale shenanigans, they've usually been pretty weak in game. I say currently they're about as strong as they've ever been for the 8 years or so that they've been around, and even now I'd say they're kind of usable as opposed to standout good. Perhaps a small unit dropping in to do some objective skirmishing and shenanigans. Lightly armed with their combat knives, now they at least get a bit of AP with those. They can be alright to skirmish over objectives, given their objective control debuff. Next up, we've got the Blade Guard Veterans, in general pretty well enjoyed miniatures for Space Marine collectors. They were the ones that were voted people's favourite miniature for the Space Marines when I did a big poll on it in the past. Quite nice Primaris with a good mix of these sort of gothic Space Knight things that make Space Marines unique. The plastic kit's quite a good one, coming with lots of spare bits that you could potentially kit bash a few more with. In game they've been fairly solid for the Space Marines recently. They particularly enjoyed the +1 to wound from Oath of Moment, and might most often be seen in units of 6 with a Judaseer leading them. It can make for really quite a punchy general purpose squad. They did get a small points increase recently for the bigger unit, though I don't think it's taken them out of contention. Then we've got the Aggressors, big chunky Gravis armoured fire support with power fists. They've often been a pretty scary danger unit and damage dealer as a result, with a combination of being really quite heavily armed but kind of slow to get to the fight. In game there are 100 points per 3 of them, and can put out a fair amount of firepower with AP-1 against the closest unit, before still hitting pretty hard in melee with twin power fists. They feel maybe a bit on the niche side for the Space Marines at the moment, despite a points cut, generally needing really quite a big investment to make them viable, usually with support characters and jumping out of a Land Raider or similar to get them where they need to be, but they can hit hard when maxed out. Finally for the main units, we've got Chief Librarian Tigurius of the Ultramarines. He came out back in 8th edition, I believe, alongside the first wave of characters for the other first founding chapters, a librarian miniature with his Rod of Tigurius, and a fair amount of Ultramarines heraldry. In-game he's quite a fun character with a cheap 75 point cost. He puts out perhaps a surprising amount of damage dealing at strength 6 and damage 2 with his Storm of the Emperor's Wrath, has some alright melee. gives you -1 to hit and some protection against mortal wounds and psychic attacks, and then allows you to use some reactive stratagems for free. In particular, Overwatch is really quite nasty for any sort of shooting units. Overall, between all that, I think he's got enough value to make himself pretty interesting for 75 points. I think I'd be kind of tempted to field with a 5-man squad of Stern Guard and have both him and the Stern Guard go after the Oath of Moment targets. Between the squad's combined shooting and melee, rerolls to hit and wound, and +1 to wound, they could deal a serious amount of damage, and then maybe have some utility value with Targeris' special rules beyond that. Finally, we've got the Ultramarines upgrades and transfer sheets. We already mentioned them. Like Targeris, they're going to have more impact and usefulness for people who actually collect Ultramarines, as opposed to more general Space Marine collectors. For the discount in the box set, the pricing is likely to be £105 or $170 as mentioned, and here's the rough breakdown of how much the things will be sold for separately. These ones are pre-price rises, and going for half a squad for the Intercessors and Reavers. As a result, it looks like there's around about $262 or £162 in the box set, and assuming they rise by about 4% as Games Workshop said, it looks like compared with buying them separately, the box set will ultimately be around about a 37% discount if you assume that you wanted to pay the full price for that upgrade sprue and the transfer sheet. If you completely discounted that though, it still seems that the discount in the box set is acceptable, more like 28% off, which is a bit more in line with Games Workshop's more standard Combat Patrol averages for 10th edition. Either way, at least at first impressions, it seems like it's a reasonable enough discount if you do specifically want these models, of course. For the points in the box, it's kind of middle of the road. Targeris is 75, the Intercessors, Reavers and Blade Guard all 80 unless you fielded the Blade Guard in a bigger unit, and the Aggressors are 100 points. Overall, that's around 415 points in the box set, and that seems sort of kind of average-ish for Combat Patrols in 10th edition, neither standout high nor low. For overall thoughts on the box set, I feel like the models are all nice enough Space Marine ones that do feel like they evoke the tactical balance of the Ultramarines. Quite nice to have some up-armoured aggressors next to some Phobos Marines, plus some standard troops and veterans of the chapter. Feels like a reasonable enough mix for the Ultramarines to me. As mentioned, the Blade Guard are particularly well liked. Maybe people tend to be a little bit more mid on the Reavers, and for modelling purposes, if you do actually collect Ultramarines, the upgrade sprue is a selling point there. Gameplay wise, it's a bit more of a mix. As mentioned along the way, I feel like the Intercessors and the Blade Guard are maybe the more standout ones of the box set, and then the other three all being in the category where they're usable but not really stand out for Space Marines. The Space Marines do have a vast amount of units to compete. The Aggressors probably want to be maxed out in some sort of big combo with lots of support. The Reavers are playable, though given the big competition for their role, things like Jump Intercessors or Scouts or Infiltrators or Incursors might get the nod instead, and Tigerius I feel like is a solid enough character that tends to be more rarely played compared with Guilliman or Calgar. Tigerius having lots of Ultramarines heraldry all over him does mean that it might lessen the appeal of the box sets to non-Ultramarines collectors, along with that upgrade sprue too. Overall, for general value feels, it's an alright discount, a reasonable amount of points on the board, though not exactly huge in terms of the amount of plastic miniatures that you put down here. I feel like Games Workshop's 3-model Elite kits often tend to be a bit underwhelming for that sort of thing, even if you might be able to get a bit more value from kit bashing Blade Guard from other Marines. Overall, between all that, feels like it's not a standout Combat Patrol box, but does seem a useful enough building block for certain Space Marine armies. It is quite nice just to have a few basic stable style units. I feel like Aggressors, Intercessors and Blade Guard have at least fairly reliably been interesting enough units to field in game, given they're the base troops plus some of the more central elite infantry damage dealers. Weirdly enough, it feels like this one might actually pair kind of alright with the Dark Angels Combat Patrol potentially. That would build up the Blade Guard veteran squad to a unit of 6, and you'd have a Gravis captain to lead the Aggressors. I guess you might be going a bit heavy on the Intercessors, maybe could be one if you're starting Space Marines completely afresh and you didn't already have any. In any case though, what do you make of the Ultramarines Combat Patrol box set? Would you be tempted to pick one of these up or not? Finally for this one, I'll just give a quick shout out to the channel's October giveaway for the full Space Marine Battle Company. The draw for this one will be done in just over 48 hours time, and as mentioned, it's for 3 channel viewers to win a Space Marine Battle Company, the rules being for any combination of Space Marine kits up to $550 or $900, and it must include at least 50 models. If your selections go up to a big 100 models, then you can have slightly more, going up to £600 or $1,000 USD. Those are Games Workshop web store prices, and you can also build some other battle companies of Grey Knights, the Divergent chapters, Chaos Marines or Heresy era ones if you want to. Here are just a few examples of what you could make. Here's maybe going for a slightly more standard Primaris battle company perhaps, a chapter command of Captain, Lieutenant, Chaplain and Dreadnought, then 40 Intercessors, 20 Hellblasters, 20 Jump Intercessors and 20 Infiltrators or Incursors. Loads of other things that you could do though. I did make an entire video for some examples for different chapters. Here's maybe a slightly more Iron Hands themed one, going heavy on Hellblasters and Intercessors plus some Scouts, 2 Tech Marines to lead their way, and then 3 Dreadnoughts and 2 Repulsor Executioners to back them up. In any case, for whichever battle company you'd be particularly wanting, there's 2 equal ways to enter linked down in the video description as per normal with the channel giveaways. Either you can support the channel on Patreon for any paid amount per month, that gets you automatic entry and is the main thing that supports the creation of my videos here on the channel. A big thank you to people helping out there, or otherwise you can support via social media, which is completely for free and helps boost the algorithms a bit. And to do that you do 3 things. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and then either like or follow the channel's Facebook page in the video description. And then for the entry to the giveaway there, the Google form is posted on the 1st of October. That appears at midnight UK time. The main thing that that'll ask for is a photo of any 40k mini or imagery, along with your name and the date handwritten within the same photo. That last bit is just to deter bots and spammers and make sure prizes go to real people. That'll be open for 24 hours, and then I lock the post, do the draw, and announce the winners in the channel update video on the 4th of October. Models will be posted out after I've received my orders of them. In any case, if you'd like to enter, check down in the video description for either the Patreon or the Facebook page, and there'll be further giveaways each and every month. I'll leave that there for now though. Let me know your thoughts as to the new Ultramarines things. I look forward to hearing your takes down in the comments. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly be keeping the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones out just about every day. As mentioned, check out the Patreon page if you'd like to support the channel, as well as the giveaway entries. There's also a few other things like seeing occasional videos early. A big thank you to people helping out there. In any case though, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.